Back in the early 1980s, after the U.S. relaxed their overall length restriction on trucks, some pretty large iron started to appear on the interstates. Some of these big trucks with great big bunks, and one of the first to appear was a large blue Freightliner, long hood Freightliner, long wheelbase, 96 square inch bunk. It was dark blue and it had a ghostly winged Pegasus, the horse from Greek mythology, painted on the side. The truck had a hopped up 8 V92 Detroit, 16-speed air spicer, planetary rear ends, over 200 lights, pulled a stainless trailer, and it could run well over 100 miles an hour, fully loaded. The driver's handle was Chinaman, but his real name was Mike Davison. Now, the big dark Freightliner with the stainless trailer, it was a heavy old truck, but Mike didn't care. If he was overweight, he just simply ran around the scales. Mike ran that truck for about 5 years, back and forth from the coast, until finally one day, after about 5 years, he was tired of the Freightliner. It had a lot of miles on it. He ran all the time, but he'd been bitten by the 359 bug. So he just traded the old Freightliner. Nobody could believe it because it was such a beautiful truck, but he traded the old Freightliner, bought a really nice 359, painted it bright red, started customizing it, put a set of sticks in it, a 6 and a 4, stretched it to over 300-inch wheelbase. He painted the thing red, took it down to Phoenix, had a big mural put on the side of this truck, and it was the same Pegasus, only a smaller winged horse, being fed by a mural of his wife. Mike stretched the truck to over a 300-inch wheelbase, and he put in a hydraulic hood kit, the only one I'd ever seen, so he could open and close the hood by flipping a button. He bought a new 96-inch wide, 48-foot spread axle American trailer, loaded with lights. Life was good. But like with everything good in trucking, sooner or later, things change, and that's what happened to Mike. First, he lost his furniture contract going out west, no fault of his own. The company simply closed up and moved away. So he lost the furniture contract. He ended up losing the produce contract a couple years later because he was getting older and slower and the pills were getting to him and it just couldn't be helped. So the produce house quit loading him. He tried dry freight for a while, but that didn't really seem to work out for him. And finally, at the end there, he was doing local work, shunting trailers and stuff around, but he didn't really stick with it. It wasn't for him. Mike finally ended up selling the big 359 and just kind of faded off into obscurity for the last few years. Last week, the Lettuce King called me to tell me that the Chinaman had passed. Chinaman was a real character. He was a great mechanic, and he was a good friend. Mike was one of those old-style truckers. He loved to tease the girls, he loved to tell big stories, he'd love to lie to the DOT, and he got caught more than a few times and had more than a few incidents trying to sneak around behind the back of the scales. It's kind of sad with Mike passing because this, for us in the trucking industry, is kind of the end of an era. He's one of the last old school trucker guys that ran the highways, whether he had license plates or not, and authority and insurance. He was just out there running and making money. And he was in the best of the heyday days of trucking. Those days are gone, and now Mike is gone too. Quick story, the day Mike traded the big Freightliner in, he hadn't told anybody. I just happened to be driving by the truck dealership when he was trading it, and I pulled in. I couldn't believe he was trading that truck. It was just gorgeous. But he was tired of that truck. He needed something new. He'd fallen in love with these 359s. He says, "Here, if you like this old truck so much, here, you can have this." And he took this plaque off his dashboard and gave it to me, and I still have it to this day. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down. Some of the old school truckers may be starting to pass away, but the mindset of old school trucking still remains, and those are the best truck drivers. Keep the rubber side down. I'll see you on the back haul.